Good morning. One of my favorite pieces of music. I hope you enjoyed it. So, happy Father's Day, happy Sunday, happy June the 21st. We're going to start with a couple of Dad Day funnies from Reader's Digest and Boy's Life. Our Generation X daughter, Christy, made my husband a Father's Day card. It was entitled, "Things My Dad Will Never Say." Can you turn that music up? Here, take the keys to my truck, and here's $50 for gas, too. I love your tattoo. We should both get new ones. And the thing that's funny is I can hear my ex-husband saying that to my daughter. Yeah. She always wanted a tattoo. She was 8, and she wanted a tattoo, and he had tattoos, and he said, "Oh no, you could never do that." So of course, as soon as she turned 18, she got tattooed from dang near scalp to soul, okay, covered one end to the other, and he was horrified. And I went, "Thank you. See what you did." Dads are very influential sometimes, okay. One last thing that Dad will never say: "Here, take the remote." So Father's Day was near when I brought my 3-year-old son Tyler to the card store. Inside, I showed him the cards for dads and told him, "Pick out one that you like." I came back a few minutes later, and here's Tyler taking the cards out, opening them, and shoving them back in any which way. And I said, "Tyler, honey, what are you doing?" And he said, "I'm looking for the card with the money in it. This kid is going to go far." You know. And one last one. 4 gentlemen are sitting in the hospital waiting room while their wives are in labor. A nurse comes out, and she tells the first one, "Congratulations, you're the father of twins." And he said, "That's awesome. That's also really odd. I work for the Minnesota Twins." A nurse comes out a few moments later. She looks at the second guy and says, "Congratulations, your wife just had triplets." And he said, "That's awesome, but it's really weird too. I work for 3M Company." A few minutes later, another nurse comes out. She looks at the third guy and says, "Your wife just had quadruplets." And he says, "That's amazing. I work at the Four Seasons Motel." Isn't that incredible? They look over, and the fourth guy is banging his head against the wall. And they said, "What's wrong?" He said, "I work for 7-Up." I'm leaving now. I'm getting a bus out of town, right? You know, that would be a good, maybe almost a good reason too. 7 babies. I always look at those pictures of people on the internet that have 6 little babies, and I'm like, huh, really? You know, I was like psycho with one. Actually, they were 15 years apart, and I was psycho both times, so I'm not sure what happened in the meantime. So, with no further ado, if you've had the experience of being a father physically, or a stepdad, an adopted dad, some kind of dad, we want you to stand up now. We want to give you a big hand and say thank you. If you can stand up, if you can't, you can put your hand up. Thank you, guys. Because the bottom line is, without you, none of it would be, okay? None of it. Not a bit of it. Takes 2 to tango, doesn't it? Definitely takes dads. So today we celebrate the divine masculine, and we celebrate our dads today. And in recognizing this day as a holy day, it is a holy day for fathers, what we also recognize is that each and every one of us here is a father of sorts, regardless of gender, regardless of history, regardless of biology. What we understand is that father, when we look at that in its deepest expression, is really about being a generator, a creator of life. And every one of us is about that. Ernest Holmes writes in the Science of Mind text that if the creative essence of the universe stopped, the world would cease to exist. That it is that creative process that keeps everything moving. Think about it. Some of us went to the Maribaba Center recently, and we went down to the ocean and we watched it roll in and roll out. Without that creative process, the universe will not continue. Without the birds flying overhead and people making babies, okay? Whether it's 2 or 3 or 4 or 7, okay? Whatever it is, that creative process is necessary. And it lives in every single one of us. So we have awesome stuff. Sherry, can I get your help? Because this is too heavy for us to pass. It's the beautiful glass bowl that Carol made for us several years ago. So she's going to move around the room with chocolates. If you're a dad, you can take 2. Everybody enjoy, and we celebrate our dads, and we say thank you to you specifically, and also to that creative power, that creative genius that lives and is the heart of all it is. So we understand that each and every one of us has the capacity to nurture, to foster, to father growth in something on this planet. And when we stand up and we do that, and we accept the freedom that that is, what we find out is that we're incredibly amazed at how potent we really are. If we look at the deep meaning of the word Father, of course, in the Fillmore Metaphysical Dictionary, and this is borrowing from our cousins at Unity, in the Unity teaching, the word Father does mean one who has begotten a child, but it also has a deeper meaning, and that is, just as I said, to be a generator. So given that we know that God, whatever it is, that essence, that energy of which all things, from which all things flow, is the great cause, the cause of all life, we understand that our human fathers and our mothers and every one of us is causal in nature, that we are generators of the physical existence that we have here on this earth plane. Now, for some of us, this experience, when we stop and have kind of a point in time, if there was such a thing, where we recognize a specific set of individuals, be it mothers, be it fathers, be it grandparents, whatever it is. Thank you, Sherry. That is a wonderful thing. What happens is that we find that to be an aside from our daily round, a time when we truly, I got the right kind too, thank you God. Okay, all right, we'll save that for later. But we allow these experiences, these holy days, to be a time when we give ourselves a break, we give ourselves a mental moment, and we allow our gratitude and our joy and our love for the expression of that which was, so that we could be, to have been in our life. But then there are some of us, and of course this is true for many of us, where when we look at a holiday like Father's Day, it has an edge to it. Perhaps the experiences we had weren't always pleasant. Perhaps even to this day, we find ourselves strained or stressed. I know probably one of the most difficult things I ever experienced, and it wasn't with my father, it was with my mother, was being that generation that while I was still raising my children, had the need to turn around and become a parent to my own mother. And that is probably one of the hardest walks any of us will ever have. So whether it's a good day, whether it's a difficult day, what we want to do is look at it through the lens of love and through the lens of wholeness. My esteemed colleague, who comes from Seattle Center for Spiritual Living, some of you have heard of her. She's an icon in the Science of Mind movement, quite frankly. Reverend Dr. Kathy Ann Lewis wrote a little poem, and it's a beautiful piece that I think allows us to look with an eye of truth to the relationships that we have with our parents. Again, be they comfortable or be they not so comfortable. So this is in the spirit of Khalil Gibran, so I encourage you to just open and enjoy it. It's entitled, Your Parents Are Not Your Parents. Just like you remember, your children are not your children. So here we go. Your parents are not your parents. They are the channels through which life recreated itself. You came through them, but not from them. And though they may still be with you, you do not belong to them, nor they to you. You may receive their love, but not their thoughts, for their thoughts are from a different era. New thoughts must be generated within you now for this time and for this place, for this life that we are living. For life does not go backward, nor does it become trapped in yesterday. You are the product of generation upon generation of humankind longing to give their children a better life than what they had. You have done nothing by yourself, even if it may seem that it has been so. For the prayers, the petitions of millions of mothers crying out to the infinite to bless and protect their children have been heaped upon you. And the pride and the faith of millions of fathers in their offspring continues to inspire you at a deep cellular level. We are all that which has gone before. Don't let their prayers and their faith be in vain. Receive with humble acceptance the blessing of the ancients, and then be sure to pass it on. So we understand in this teaching that whatever it is that we have that is ours in any moment to share, to carry forth in this lifetime, it must in some measure have issued from the experiences that others have fathered into being for us. My funniest father story doesn't really revolve around my own biological father. Actually, my own biological father was there, but you know, he did such a good job that I never got to meet him. He left most days before I ever got up as a little girl, and he came home after I went to bed. I remember a few times having dinner, supper, whatever we called it, on his lap. That was a very rare occasion. He worked a lot. He became ill and he retired, and shortly after that we moved to North Carolina. Within 2 years he had died. So I never really knew him. My funniest father story is not with him. It's with Francis Leahy, and many of you know that name. You've seen that face. Francis was a practitioner at the center in Asheville. For a number of years. He has since passed. So the year that I entered ministerial school, Barbara Waterhouse said to me, "You have an assignment. You need to come in and on Monday nights and co-teach this class with Francis. And I want you to take care of him because the students will kick his you-know-what." I was like, really? Come on, right. I don't want to do this. Never mind. I'm here, okay? So I show up, and Francis and I, we worked and worked and worked in the class. He had the class curriculum all prepared. Of course, we changed it 72 times before we got there, okay? And we got there in the first class, and one of the things we found out was that we had the same birth date, which is pretty incredible. Francis was 21 the year that I was born. Okay, so we get into class the first night, and maybe I didn't tell you yet, but Francis was a retired Navy officer, okay? He had been hell on wheels, to put it very mildly, almost all of his life, okay? So we're in class and we have about 35 students, and things are going okay, and then Francis gets to a part in the text, in the teaching, where he really wants to make a point. So what he does is this, okay? And the class jumped a collective 10 feet back, and I flipped out. Because I thought, Francis, you're going to scare the hell out of them. They will leave and never come back. And they did. We had 12 people at the next class. The hardest thing, one of the hardest things I've ever done is go up to somebody like Francis and say, don't do that again. It didn't work. So it was pretty funny at the time. I was a shaking blob by the time it wasn't really confronting him, but by the time I asked him to change his demeanor a little bit so that the students might find it a little easier road. So quite an incredible experience. So we understand about father stuff, that father, the word father, isn't just a noun. It's not just a name or a title that we assign to someone who has helped create a child. We understand that it is a verb too, that it has to do with fostering, with ushering in, with supporting the creation and the development and the generation of something. And it is in that awareness that we can look at each and every one of ourselves and know that we fathered stuff. We fathered many things. I liked what Anthony said a few minutes ago in his reflection. He mentioned people making mistakes and that there really is no such thing. There's an African tribe that when a young person makes a mistake, they bring them to the room and they surround them. And what they do instead of telling them how wrong they are, is they tell them all the things that they've done right, all the ways that they've changed lives. How much different would life be on this planet if even a few of us engaged in that? What about the people that don't have our love in this moment because of some past experience, because of some misinformation or mistake, something that didn't work out right in communication or experience? What if instead of looking at them and saying, you did it, you caused it, what if we pointed our eyes toward Dylan Roof today in Charleston and said, we're sorry for whatever it was that brought about your need. The impetus was in you to generate what happened in Charleston this week. We would change this planet in less than a generation if we practiced that, even part of the time. We understand that there are positive attributes that have to do with fostering or fathering. And so some of those are being active, being intelligent, logical, rational, linear, determined, reliable, strong, stable, protective, sensible, heroic, focused, single-minded, practical, goal-oriented, consistent, predictable, capable, smart, rugged, ordered, and disciplined. We understand that fathering, in its most distilled state, is about being responsible for ourselves and with others. On the wall here, we have some fathers. We have some who were biologically fathered families, and we have others who did not. All of these gentlemen helped father, helped sow the seeds of a greater peace, a greater presence of love in our world. Some of these I know that you recognize and others that you do not. So I'll mention them. At the top over on the left, we have Johan Galtung, who in 1959 founded the Peace Research Institute in Oslo, Norway. He has been recognized in teachings, in his teachings and the contributions of all kinds of things, from mathematics and sociology to conflict and conflict resolution and peace building. He is a father of peace. He has changed the world in Norway for people. He has created a world that is better because of him having been here. Of course, in the middle now, most of us will recognize our own father of sorts, in that the father of science of mind, that's Ernest Holmes. That's the best picture I think I've ever seen of Ernie too. You know, good pictures of him are kind of hard to come by. I don't know what that's about. But he is awesome. He is the father of science of mind. I can't imagine my life without this teaching today. And I've only been around this movement 12 or 13 years. I can't imagine what it would be like to grow up in this teaching or to live and become old in a teaching where I get it, where it is affirmed to me constantly that I have only to turn my GPS toward how I wish for things to be, and the whole world shifts. And it does, doesn't it? You've seen that. You've practiced it. You know it. The gentleman on the right and the top is also familiar to you maybe through his work in the field of what we call spiral dynamics. That is Don Edward Beck, who followed in the footsteps of a mentor and took spiral dynamics, a teaching, a theory about human evolution, human consciousness, and how we change, into South Africa. He made many, many trips over there, and it was through his work in the field of spiral dynamics that they brought forth an ending, a non-violent ending to apartheid in that country. Get the book Spiral Dynamics and read it. It will blow your socks off. If you can understand it, it's worse than earnest, that's all I know. So, the two guys on the bottom don't bear any identification. You know who they are, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, whom I am. There's just something about that smile that makes me just break every time I see that face. Such a beautiful individual. Yeah. Think about what our worlds would be like if we didn't have the teachings of lovers like him. He is truly a father of peace. And of course we have Martin Luther King, who I know his spirit is alive and surrounding those right here, right now in Charleston, holding them up, loving on them, and helping them find a way. So I mentioned that we know father-ishness to be a verb, to be an action. All of these men have fathered big things. They have actively stepped out, opened up to the brilliance of the universe, and carried that out into the world. They were probably afraid. I can't imagine them not being. When I was looking for that particular picture of Martin Luther King, I found a couple. One is him sitting in a jail cell. You know, he was arrested like 30 times. You want your kid to play with somebody who has that kind of history? I don't know. You know? But there was one picture of him in the back of a car, and I swear in that moment they captured his awareness of what was going to happen to him. That he knew, and yet he understood. It's okay. I'm not the message. The message is bigger than me, and it will live beyond me. It will live beyond this time. And if any one of us desires to foster some change in this world, it is that change that speaks past the grave, past our immortality, and to the rest of the people on this planet. So, what we want to do today is we want to recognize that even in the face of amazing craziness and chaos on this planet, good things are happening. It's hard to see that sometimes. It's just been 2 weeks ago that here in our own Macon County, 2 gunmen crept onto the campus, right here in Franklin, before the sun came up one morning, with weapons loaded. They got on one of the school buses and planted guns. They went around the outside of the campus on an elementary school property in Franklin, North Carolina, and left loaded weapons. That site is one of the classrooms my day job funds a pre-K room at, okay? It blew me away when I heard this. And it is only through the amazingly, in the moment activities of a lady bus driver and a lady rookie cop that brought those 2 to justice, okay? We would have had another Sandy Hook, and it would have been in Franklin, North Carolina. That blows me away. And then we turn our eyes to the situation in Charleston, and we wonder, how can we foster anything? When I hear about things like this, I don't know about you guys, but what I feel is so deeply touched and yet so unable to convey what I know is true, that we each and every moment have the capacity to change that experience by rewriting the story. We can look at that outcome in Charleston and we can say, oh my God, go after that guy, nail him to the wall, blah, 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 blah. Or we can recognize that every single person in that picture was in tremendous pain, that every single person in that experience somehow was hurting and has hurt and probably has hurt for a very long time for any of that to come into fruition. And so what we're going to do today is to foster peace, to foster love, to send it out there in the world to our friends in Charleston. We're going to do this very simply and very sweetly. When you came in earlier, you might have seen a table back there. We have some different kinds of paper, and we have some markers. And what I bid for you to do, if you are willing, is we'll take a few moments while we have some music playing, walk to the back of the room, get a piece of paper and a marker or 2, and just send a short note, a letter of love, a statement of the truth that we are never alone. And what we're going to do is put all these in that envelope that waits back there, and I'll mail them this week to Emmanuel AME Church. Because right here, right now, their community feels, I'm sure in tremendous part, very broken. They lost mothers and fathers and sisters. They lost 3 of their ministers. They lost a state senator. It ain't right. You know, it ain't right. They lost a lot. But Dylan Roof had already lost it all, I think, before he picked up that gun and walked in that room last week. So we're going to put on a little music. Kathy's going to help us with that. We're going to turn down the lights. And again, the invitation to you is just to step to the back, get a piece of paper and a pen, and write a short note to the folks at Emmanuel AME Church. And let them know, let everybody know in this situation that we are surrounding them with love, that we are holding them up, and that we believe in very strongly in their ability to walk through this from a place of spiritual principle, from a place of compassion and forgiveness and love for everybody involved.